The ship fell out of the sky on a Tuesday. No warning. No diplomatic transmission. No blinking lights heralding first contact with an advanced civilization. Just a sound like the universe tearing at the seams, a streak of violet fire across the Nevada desert, and then silence, the kind of silence that follows something enormous deciding it has had enough. The Kethvoran vessel, later catalogued by humanity as Object Sigma 7, was 3 kilometers long, partially fused at its midsection, venting atmosphere from 17 different hull breaches, and, most importantly, empty. Its crew had already gone. Escape pods, long-range shuttles, short-range personnel craft, all launched. All fled. Whatever catastrophic failure had doomed the ship, her builders had decided she was not worth saving. They had not, however, bothered to inform the planet they were crashing into. Darian Voss arrived at the perimeter on the 4th day. He was not the first engineer on site. The military had beaten everyone to the scene, but he was, by most accounts, the first person to look at the wreckage and not see a disaster. He stood at the edge of the exclusion zone, hands in his jacket pockets, staring at the broken colossus half buried in alkaline dust, and said, very quietly, to no one in particular, "We can fix that." The colonel standing next to him turned slowly. "It's an alien warship, Mr. Voss." "Yes," Darian agreed. "And it has an engine." He was 38 years old, lead systems architect at a private aerospace firm that had already put 4 orbital platforms into service, a man who had grown up disassembling radios and reassembling them better than they had started. He had the particular gift of the obsessive, the ability to look at broken things and see only what they could become. What Object Sigma 7 could become, in his estimation, was a working starship. The colonel laughed. Darian requested a site access badge. It took 6 months to get inside. Another 8 to map the ship's internal architecture. The propulsion bay alone was the size of a football stadium, 3 of them, stacked, and the engineering language written across every surface was unlike anything human linguists had encountered. Not just a different language. A different logic. The Kethvoran did not label components, they grew them. Systems were biological in structure, hierarchical in a way that mirrored cellular organization more than mechanical design. But Darian had always been good at learning new languages. He built a translation framework, not for the words, but for the logic itself. He mapped the ship's failure cascade backwards, tracing each collapsed system to its root cause, a quantum resonance misalignment in the primary drive coil, cascading through backup regulators the Kethvoran had not properly shielded. By their engineering standards, the failure was catastrophic and unrecoverable. Their backups relied on the same frequency architecture as the primary. When one failed, they all failed. Humans, Darian noted in his project log, do not build backups that share failure modes with the primary system. He presented a repair proposal to the international coalition that had formed around the wreck: 17 nations, 24 aerospace firms, 3 competing intelligence agencies, and 1 very confused UN oversight committee. The proposal was 400 pages long and included 12 appendices. The executive summary was 3 sentences. The ship can be repaired. Human engineering principles can compensate for the architectural flaw that caused the original failure. We should do this. The debate took 2 years. The construction took 9 more. On the morning of the launch, Darian stood on the bridge and looked out through the forward viewports at a Nevada sky turning from indigo to gold. The crew around him, engineers, pilots, scientists, soldiers, a medical team, 2 diplomats who had insisted on being included, moved with the quiet efficiency of people who had spent years preparing for a single moment. The ship hummed. Not the sickly, interrupted hum of a vessel in distress, but a deep, clean resonance that Darian felt in his chest like a second heartbeat. They had replaced the quantum coil with a hybrid design, Kethvoran in form, human in redundancy architecture. 4 independent backup systems, each shielded against the failure modes of the others. Where the aliens had built elegance, humanity had added stubbornness. He pressed his hand against the bulkhead and felt the vibration of an engine that had been abandoned as dead. "Ready?" the pilot asked. "We've been ready," Darien said, "for 11 years." High Marshal Zyrex received the report on the bridge of his command vessel, 3 light-years from the Sol system, and read it twice. Then he read it a third time. The Kethvoran warship Undying Advance, a vessel his fleet had written off as destroyed after its emergency evacuation, had just departed the third planet of the Sol system under full drive power. It was broadcasting on Kethvoran frequencies. Its drive signature was unmistakably the Undying Advance's own, and yet something about it was different. Cleaner. More stable. The resonance pattern that had plagued the original design, the subtle flaw that had caused the cascade failure, was simply gone. Zyrex was High Marshal of the Kethvoran 6th Expeditionary Fleet. He had conquered 11 systems. He had accepted the surrender of 4 spacefaring civilizations. He was not a man who felt uncertainty easily. He felt it now. "Tactical analysis," he said. His science officer was quiet for a moment longer than usual. "Marshal, they repaired it." "I can see that." "In 11 years. Another pause. "Our best engineering teams estimated a minimum of 40 years to make the Undying Advance spaceworthy again, assuming access to full Kethvoran manufacturing infrastructure. The primitives on that planet did it in 11 years. Without our manufacturing infrastructure. Without our materials. Without," the science officer stopped. "Without our knowledge," Zyrex finished. He studied the drive signature again. The flaw he had been briefed on, the resonance instability that had doomed the ship, was not merely corrected. It had been redesigned. The humans had looked at Kethvoran engineering and found an error his own people had built into the architecture for 3 generations without noticing. And then they had fixed it. Zyrex had reviewed the intelligence assessments on humanity before the original expedition passed through the Sol system. Pre-FTL. Limited computational capacity. Warlike but self-contained. Not a threat. Not a priority. He pulled up the current sensor readings. The Undying Advance, he supposed he should think of it differently now, was accelerating. Not toward any inhabited system. It was running navigational patterns, range tests, maneuverability assessments, system checks. Learning. The crew was learning how to operate a Kethvoran warship at full capacity. They would finish learning. Then they would go somewhere. "Open a communication channel," Zyrex said. Darien was eating a sandwich when the alien contact request came in. He set it down, wiped his hands, and walked to the communications console. Around him, the bridge crew had gone very still. 11 years of work. 11 years of dead ends and breakthroughs and international arguments and engineering miracles. And now, on day 4 of their shakedown voyage, something in the dark had noticed them. The translation algorithm, built on the linguistic framework developed during the repair project, rendered the incoming signal with about 70% confidence. It was enough. The alien's face on the viewscreen was angular, gray-green, his expression carrying the unmistakable geometry of someone who has just revised a critical assumption. When he spoke, the translator rendered his title as High Marshal. "This is High Marshal Zyrex of the Kethvoran 6th Expeditionary Fleet. You are operating a vessel registered to the Kethvoran hegemony. Identify yourselves and explain your presence." Darien looked at the viewscreen for a moment. Then he sat down in the captain's chair, a chair that had been rebuilt from scratch because the original was sized for a species with 4 arms, and leaned forward slightly. "This is Darien Voss, commanding the UESS Second Chance," he said. "We found your ship. You left it." The alien said nothing. "You decided it was broken beyond fixing," Darien continued. "We disagreed. We fixed it. So now it's ours." He paused. "You're welcome to file a complaint." Zyrex stared at him through 3 light years of empty space. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed, some note in it that the translator did not catch but that Darian's very human instincts read clearly enough. Respect. Reluctant, recalculated, and absolute. What do you want? The High Marshal asked. Darian picked his sandwich back up. To see what's out there, he said simply. Same thing you wanted, I imagine. He let the silence sit for exactly long enough. We'll be in touch, he said, and ended the transmission. The UESS Second Chance continued on her heading, her human-engineered heart beating clean and steady in the dark, carrying 47 human beings toward the rest of the galaxy. They had found a broken, abandoned thing. They had made it better than it had ever been. That was, and had always been, what humanity did.